Lindsay, how are you?
I am great. Did I tell you we got a fish?
What? Oh my God. That's okay.
That's
That's
a big
crazy
deal.
because we just got another fish. It's a
What?
rescue fish. Why are our lives just overlapping with
It's true. I
tuna
had no idea you had
tuna
gotten a
sandwiches
fish.
yesterday, fish today?
And
Okay, so tell me about your fish.
it's a beta fish. We had never had a fish, but we had never had a pet before. And our
Oh,
kids have
right.
really wanted one. So we're like, oh, we could do a fish. So we got a
Yeah.
tank. And I actually grabbed to show you. And all of you guys, if you're
Yay.
watching on YouTube, you're going to see my daughter drew our fish.
Oh, oh, I love it. Beta fish are so pretty.
It's bright red. They named him or her, I don't know,
Yeah.
Raspberry. So cute. She actually put this my daughter put this by the tank as, like, either, like, a mirror or maybe, like, so that it thinks it has a friend. This, like,
Oh my
goes
goodness
by the fish tank.
gracious. That is so cute. You guys, you have to see this picture that Aubrey's
It's
daughter
really cute.
drew. That is precious. It's a good, like,
It's actually
drawing.
a really good
It's
drawing of
really
a betta
good.
fish. It is a
Yeah.
very good likeness.
Check out IELTS Energy TV on YouTube, guys. And maybe you heard me mention something about a tuna sandwich just a minute ago. Guys, do listen to our episode from yesterday about writing task 2 ideas in case you missed that, because yesterday, we also discovered that we had something surprising overlapping. Yeah, dude. So we have like a rescue fish now. It's also a beta fish. There was an email one night last week, and somebody in my condo complex had just left a fish in a really dirty tank downstairs, was just gonna let this fish die.
Oh,
So,
no.
of course, I went to get it. But it's a beta fish, so we can't add him to the rest to our tank. So now we just have another fish tank. And James named him Little Man. Lil Man.
Oh, so
That's his
cute.
name.
Yeah, if you guys listening aren't aware, this I'm not sure how you say betta fish in your first language, but they are these beautiful, colorful fish with these big flowy fins. But if you put two in a tank, they attack each other.
Yeah.
Like they won't survive. So they
Nope.
have to be separated. Yeah,
Yep.
when you buy them at the pet store, they're in their own little
Yeah.
tub or they'll attack each other. So I'm so
They're
glad you
very
rescued that
pretty.
fish. They are so
I'm so
pretty.
glad you have a pet now. Okay,
Yes.
let's get into today's episode, guys. We have an awesome episode about speaking part 2 today. A question from a YouTube subscriber and a sample answer. So, Aubrey, can you read that question, please?
Yeah, this is from Erin Kalaskan. It said, the IELTS speaking test wanted me to tell about a memory I had with a child, and I recounted a memory I had with a friend when I was a kid. Will this affect my score?
Okay, so first of all, guys, I racked my brain and Googled the heck out of this, trying to find if there is a speaking part 2 question on IELTS about a memory with a child. There is not. There's some miswording in here. So, what I think happened with this is that the topic was like, describe a childhood memory you have, or your best
Mhm.
childhood memory, or your happiest memory from childhood. Those are all the variations. And then one of the 3 bullet points under that was maybe like who you were with. And so I think just that information came across sounding weird in the question, because that wouldn't be a question. It wouldn't be worded like that on IELTS. A memory you have with a child, like that's very weird.
Right.
That
IELTS
wouldn't
is
happen.
not going to ask you something that would be specific to certain people, right? A lot of young adults or adults, if they don't have children of their own, they don't have memories with children. So
Yeah,
that there's a chance that you'd be asked that and literally be like, I have no memories with a child, or this is weird.
right.
So IELTS is for something like this, it'll be a little more either general to
Yeah,
something that everyone has knowledge of, like their own childhood,
right.
right? It's
Exactly.
it's that's one thing that you don't have to stress out about IELTS asking you something that you have no frame of reference for. You don't know, they're
Exactly.
not going to ask you like, tell us about when you birthed a child. No, right? That's doesn't apply to everyone. IELTS is not going to ask you
That's
something
so
like that.
funny. That's hilarious. Yeah, and like, yeah, exactly. Like, the IELTS question won't assume your
A
specific life
parent,
experience or
right?
age. Like, it won't be
Exactly.
like, because that question, a memory with a child, that's assuming you are not a child then, which people of all ages can take IELTS. Like I've had high school students in taking the exam, and that question wouldn't make any sense to them. So again, okay, that wasn't exactly the question. So the way that Aaron answered the question, a memory she or he had with a friend when they were a kid. Perfect. Like yep, that's great. That's perfect. That would have answered the question directly.
Yes, and that's what the nice thing to keep in mind here is that often the sort of overarching topic is going to have the option of going lots of different ways, right? All of the ones you just said, Jessica, right? Describing a childhood memory. We have best childhood memory. There is not like one super narrow, specific correct answer. There are going to
Right.
be sort of branches, sort of options.
Totally.
So in general, right, if this person answered about a childhood memory of their own and included a friend, like a memory with a friend,
Yeah,
absolutely that
totally.
works, right? That's likely
Definitely.
to be very high scoring.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, gosh, like there are so many different ways you could answer this, right? Like what are some things that come to mind when you think of this? Like I think soccer games, I think playing pinochle and Yahtzee with my grandma, I think playing with friends outside in the park and imagining clouds or unicorns. I like my favorite restaurant when I was a kid, going to
Yeah.
Silvana's and eating chocolate fudge cake, like so many memories.
Right. I think about first day of school. I often have
Oh
really vivid memories
yeah.
of the first day of school and getting new crayons and pencils and notebooks for some reason. That was so
Yes.
exciting to me. Or vacations with family. Those
Yeah,
most vivid
totally.
memories, that's what you would want to share because you'll remember a lot of details.
Exactly, exactly. All right, so I am going to give a sample part 2 answer. I did take a minute to take notes, just like you guys will on the exam. Aubrey, can you read the speaking part 2 question like an examiner would, and then you will time me as I give my answer?
Yes, I'm gonna get my timer ready. So you guys also have a good idea of how long 2 minutes is. You want to make sure to speak for that full 2 minutes. Even if when the examiner says you have 1 to 2 minutes for this, don't let that fool you. You want to use the full 2 minutes.
Yes, good tip,
All right.
good tip.
Okay, Jessica. Describe a childhood memory you have.
Okay, so this is interesting because I had some childhood memories triggered just a couple days ago at one of James' soccer games. So a lot of my childhood memories have to do with soccer. This isn't a surprise. And being at his game and cheering for him and thinking about how he felt during the game and after the game, like it really just made my own feelings from childhood being in the same exact situation like so strong and beautiful. These are some of my best memories from childhood. So all of my soccer games when I was in AYSO, that's American Youth Soccer League. All of these memories from I started playing soccer when I was like 6 years old, maybe 5 years old, up through high school, right? But so many games when I was a kid in elementary school, they were all at this one specific like field complex, which was outside of town. Not that I'm from a big town. It did not even take long to get there, but nonetheless, it was outside of town. And I remember there was this big house that was all by itself in the middle of nowhere on the way to these soccer fields, which were, by the way, surrounded by cow fields because that's the kind of town I grew up in. But this house, in the window, in the upstairs window of the house, there was always like a creepy mannequin doll face. And that was the thing you did on the way to the soccer fields as a kid. Like you would always look for this house and see which mannequin doll head was in the window because it was always something different. And it was so creepy. That's such a weird thing to remember. Um, Anyway, so the feelings that came back to me from watching him were like how I felt after the soccer games. Because, like, not to brag, but James did score 2 goals in his game on Saturday. And I was pretty good at soccer too growing up. And I remember my mom would like give me prizes, which I'm not sure
Thank
how.
you.
Oh,
Do
darn it. I
do
had
you
so much
still
more to
play
say.
soccer?
No, I wish. My knee is too messed up. I can't.
Like, I'm gonna ask you that follow-up, question because 'cause
Ah!
I've actually found students a lot lately pause before I give you this amazing feedback on that amazing answer. But a lot of students don't realize that after your part 2 question, you're going to be asked a question that's sort of a throwaway
Yeah.
transition to part 3. So you don't wanna give a long answer there, just
No,
like Jessica, just something quick, like, "No, unfortunately, my knee's messed
one
up."
one sentence, that's enough. Yep.
Yep, exactly. Okay, so the first thing I want to point out is how Jessica started this answer. If you go back and listen again, she talks about how some childhood memories were recently triggered by her son's soccer game. And this word triggered is really high level. I don't know that I've ever heard a student use it, or at least not often. And it would make such a great filler phrase as well to say something like, for any question, this triggers something I thought about recently, or
Yeah.
interesting, that triggers my opinion about this, right? And all it just means is it calls to mind. It makes me think about something else. So
Mhm.
instead of saying that, use triggers, right? Band 9 vocab for fillers, and also a really interesting way to start your part 2 answer.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, anytime you're describing a memory or feeling, right? It's going to be triggered by something else usually. You could even just say like, "Oh, that answer weird or no, that question weirdly enough just triggered a memory I have." Like
Yes.
that's the first thing you say in your answer.
Exactly, right? That's a really interesting, not common beginning. So that's
Totally.
going to impress the examiner. Don't say like, I am going to talk about, because that's what every student says, right? Say something interesting. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is the amazing intonation. Again, go back and listen if you missed this. When she's talking, first starts talking about memories, and you were like, these are so strong and beautiful. And then again, when you're talking about the dolls in the window, you're like, "So creepy." Now
It was.
imagine if she was using a monotone, how strange this would be if she's
It
just like,
was so
"These
creepy
memories
and
are"
weird.
yeah. "These memories are so strong and beautiful." It was so creepy,
So
right?
so funny.
That's when intonation is especially important for you to use the appropriate intonation for the context, for what you're saying, right? You should sound excited, sound like it was a happy memory, sound like it was creepy, and that's how you get those higher pronunciation scores.
Yeah, totally. It just makes me laugh so hard thinking about expressing anything I just said with 0 intonation. Like, that would be impossible.
I know, but unfortunately, I know I do this in Spanish and French, and I know IELTS students have a tendency to do this in English. If you're thinking about the high level vocab you want to use and the linking phrases you need to use, it's so much to think about. You often forget the actual meaning of what you're saying. And so it doesn't always match the intonation. That's so vital that you keep it varied, right? Allow emotion to show in your voice. Get that interesting intonation. Otherwise, you might get a 9 for vocabulary, but a 5 for pronunciation. And that just ruins your overall score.
And honestly, if you're using that much brain space to try and think of vocab to fit in, you're not going to be using a lot of that vocab correctly anyway because you're not using it naturally. You're taking risks with stuff that you think is high scoring, which lowers your score, right? So I
Yeah.
think that should kind of be the takeaway today because to me that ties in really well with our episode yesterday. How do we use our brains more effectively or the most effectively, right? So, yesterday with writing tasks 2, we talked about when to think about what. Same rules can apply to speaking, right? While you're speaking, it has to be you just focused on communicating your ideas with as much energy and natural vivaciousness and honesty and personality as possible. This is genuine, spontaneous communication. If you are in your head thinking about grammar and vocab, that will ruin your fluency, that will lower your vocab score, and it will ruin your pronunciation score, right? Everything that Aubrey just said that ruins your pronunciation score. So I think that is our takeaway today, guys. Like, just be in the moment and just speak from the heart. That sounds
Yeah.
cheesy, but you know what
But
I
no,
mean.
it's true. Absolutely. And if you're using our strategies to tell a story, to tell lots of interesting details about what you're talking about, that vocabulary is going to come. You've been learning it, you've been practicing using it. So instead of being so focused on what's the most impressive word I can say, just like
Right.
Jessica was saying, instead tell a story, share lots of detail, and that vocabulary will come up as you speak.
Exactly. Ah, what Great episode. Oh, and it made me feel so good putting myself in that frame of mind.
Nice.
The post soccer game kid warmth. Oh, makes me so
Oh,
happy.
that's
All right,
awesome.
guys. All right. So we will be back on the mic next week.
Awesome. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.